What's going on, guys? Today I am here with Ryan Sandstrom of Copper Canyon Law.
That's right.
Thanks for being with us, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
He is an insurance attorney. You've probably never heard that term, but it's really cool what he does. Today he is going to give us 3 tips or 3 pieces of advice, 3 things you should look at when you are buying a personal lines insurance policy.
Perfect.
Thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is great.
Absolutely. So give us a little breakdown first of what you do and who you are, and then we'll go right into the 3 tips.
Sure. So again, my name is Ryan Sandstrom. I call myself the insurance attorney, right?
Love it.
Everybody has to have a thing, and
Yep.
that's my thing. I've spent the last 15 years trying to understand all the nuances that there are about insurance law, and also kind of how that relates to business law and how that relates to people's individual coverages.
Okay.
So I've worked for judges, I've worked for insurance companies in-house. For a decade, I was a partner at a firm in Phoenix doing insurance law, interpreting policies, interpreting coverages, fighting those in state and federal court for a long time.
Okay.
And then now I'm a partner at Copper Canyon Law and helping people on the front end of those claims to make sure that they have adequate coverage.
Awesome.
And like you and I have talked about, sometimes I hate it when people say I thought I was covered for that.
Yep.
It just makes me sick when I hear
Yes,
that.
yes.
So I try to be very careful with my clients to make sure that they are covered for everything and anything that they want to be covered for.
Okay.
And we take a lot of effort, make a lot of efforts, and take a lot of time to make sure that they are covered for that.
Awesome. So you've been around the block. It seems like you've been in every angle, every aspect of the business.
Yeah.
So you know how to help people.
Yeah, I mean, before I went to law school, I sold insurance for a group in Salt Lake. And
Okay.
then I sold a little bit of insurance while I was in school, and then I clerked for a judge handling only insurance docket for the 8th Circuit District Court for the
Wow.
chief judge there. And then I worked in-house for an insurance company, and like I said, then I went private practice, worked my way up at a big firm doing defense work, defending these types of claims, insurance-related negligence type claims for business owners, for individuals, and all that kind of stuff for over a decade. Now I'm on the policyholder side, so I'm helping people when they have claims involving insurance.
Okay.
And let's be honest, insurance basically covers everything.
Absolutely.
When you think about it, think about a property damage claim at somebody's home. Like if you have a windstorm, or if you have a water loss, pipe breaks, that's an insurance claim.
Yep.
If you have an auto accident, that's an insurance claim.
Yep.
If you have a defamation case, that's an insurance claim.
Everything comes back to insurance.
It's all about insurance. Yeah, it's kind of wild. So that's what we try to understand, is help people protect from the potential of those impacts on them, especially on the personal lines. It's to make sure that they're protected.
Got it. So long story short, he knows what he's talking about. So you want to listen to these 3 tips. So let's jump into them.
Yeah, so the first one is just understanding what your risk is, right? So understanding basically what you as an individual could have exposure to.
Okay.
And there's 2 different sides of that. Number one is a property risk, and the other one's a liability risk.
Okay.
Right. So property, for example, I think we all understand if you own a vehicle, that you're going to want to have insurance that provides coverage for that vehicle.
Yep.
Now, what's interesting in Arizona, you're not required to have insurance on your own vehicle.
That is interesting.
Yeah, so you can actually buy an insurance policy that only provides liability coverage for the person that you might hit.
Okay.
So there's chance, and again, usually that's a cost-conscious decision to say I can't afford the property coverage.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you, I deal with a lot of those situations after the fact where the people get in an accident and they say, I don't have rental coverage, I don't have property coverage, and they go, I never thought I would get in an accident. Well, that's why we have policies,
Exactly.
and you get what you pay for. I mean, if you're looking for the discount policy, then you're probably going to have discount coverage.
Absolutely.
So it's really important to understand on the property damage side of things, and this is also for your home, you want to understand what coverages that you have that might apply.
Mm-hmm.
So again, vehicles, homes, intellectual property, business assets, individual assets, boats, that kind of stuff. There's
Okay.
usually policies that apply to each and every one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes you can bundle those policies together. A lot of carriers do that really, really well. But each of those is a different coverage. Your homeowner's policy will not apply to vehicles, and likewise, your vehicle coverage will not apply to homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
Your boat policy probably won't be covered under your vehicle or your homeowners,
Yep.
unless it's specifically provided for. So just understanding that individuals have a lot of different exposures. Here's a couple nuanced ones that people might not think about. Like I mentioned before, defamation,
Yeah.
which is if you say something against somebody else and they're injured because of what you said. Generally, individual lines policies may or may not cover that. It just depends on the policy.
Okay.
So if you're in a contentious relationship with somebody else, you might want to consider, hey, do I have coverage for defamation? I've litigated defamation cases. This is not to toot my own horn, but I actually just litigated a defamation case with the Arizona Court of Appeals. We won and created new laws in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That is cool.
About the defamation. So again, understanding whether or not your policy provides that. It's called advertising injury.
Okay.
Just coverage under your homeowner's policy. I have to check for that.
Okay.
If it's not covered under your individual policy, you might want to look to an umbrella policy. So that's kind of the second tip, is not as number one, understanding what liability you might have, but then also understanding generally how much coverage you need, right?
Okay. Yep.
I mean, let's be honest, if you have a small vehicle and it's not worth very much, then yeah, maybe you don't need very significant coverage, and that's okay. But if you have a lot of money in the bank, if you have a lot of assets that you need to protect, now we're talking about that liability coverage, right? So now it's not just your property. If you happen to get in an accident and you have $1 million in the bank and only $25,000 in coverage, there's a really good chance that personal injury attorney, and I do a lot of personal injury claims on the policyholder side, is going to look at you and say, sorry, your insurance isn't enough. I have a claim right now that I'm dealing with where unfortunately the guy that was involved in an accident, pretty significant accident, hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills, there's not enough insurance, so they're looking at his retirement accounts. Oof. So really painful thing. So I always tell people, look, the level of your coverage needs to match or exceed your level of exposure.
Okay. And that, if your head is kind of spinning, you're like, well, okay, what if I need coverage for that? What if I need coverage for that? What if there's something I need coverage from that I haven't even thought of? That's where finding a good agent or good broker to sit down with comes in, because he can sit and ask you all those questions to make sure that everything that needs to be covered is covered.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's basically doing the underwriting job for the carrier, but the carrier is going to take the information that they receive and just write the policy based on what's provided.
Yeah.
They're not going to try to come back to you and say, well, what about this? What about that?
Right.
So that's the agent and the broker's job, is to say, well, let's identify your exposures. And that's actually gets to my third point, is let's figure out what those exposures are and then how to best protect against them. Now, insurance agents oftentimes are sued, or claims are brought against them if they don't provide adequate, suggestions or recommendations for the amount of coverage and for the particular types of coverage. So actually, from an agent standpoint, it's really valuable to have somebody else. If that's not your wheelhouse, is the weeds of the policy, it's really valuable to get somebody like you or get somebody like me that understands those weeds to make sure that you're fully and adequately protected.
Absolutely.
Right. So again, that goes to the whole idea that you got to figure out what your exposures are and how much you need. And you can get umbrella policies for very cheap.
They are cheap.
I mean, holy smokes. I mean, you can get a $1 million umbrella policy. Granted, you have to have enough underlying insurance to qualify for an umbrella. But they're very, very cheap. I mean, we're talking a couple $100 a year for some of those big policies.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense to add that.
And I'm sure you've seen a lot of cases where someone has had an umbrella and it saved their butt.
Oh, completely. I have one right now where if there wasn't an umbrella, we would be looking at retirement accounts. That's actually on a personal injury case where we're pursuing on behalf of somebody that was injured.
Okay.
Very catastrophic case, very unfortunate case. But we looked at the liability driver, and thankfully the guy has enough insurance. If that wasn't the case, again, we'd be looking at retirement accounts and things like that. I should note there are a lot of exemptions in Arizona for different types of assets. There's what's called the homestead exemption. Okay. So there's protections for how much money somebody could go after your home, right?
Okay.
There has to be a certain amount of equity in the home in order to go after that.
Got it.
You also can't go after like furniture and household goods and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And there's some limitations on what you can go after. But really, in attorneys' minds, we think, what do the bank accounts look like? What do the retirement accounts look like?
Right.
And I always ask, whenever I'm in a personal injury or type of claim like that, we ask for affidavits of no insurance, making sure that's the only coverage, and a statement of all their assets.
Okay.
I'll get bank accounts. I'll look at the financials and see where money is.
Okay.
Again, just to make sure that we have enough.
Okay. And even though there are those exceptions and you may not lose your home, that's still something you don't want to stress and worry about.
100%.
Whereas if you have that umbrella policy, it's just, here's my policy and let them take care of it.
Exactly right. And I'll tell you a quick story. So when I was 16, I was in an auto accident.
Okay.
So this is kind of how my mind started thinking about insurance claims, right? Is I was 16 and I actually turned left in front of a motorcycle. It was my fault.
Oh, no.
And I remember we had a conversation 2 days later with the adjuster at my house. And he asked my dad questions like, hey, how much do you have in your retirement account? How much is your house worth? How much is in your bank account? And I'm sitting there as a 16-year-old kid thinking, what did I just do?
Right. Scary.
Thankfully, I mean, there were some protections with Arizona law on how much they could go after, and my dad had done a good job and hired a good agent. Okay. So there was plenty of insurance and paid it out just fine. But it got me thinking at a young age, holy smokes. Like, this is a big deal. You got to make sure that you have the right coverage in place.
Absolutely.
And again, this goes to my third point, but this also, another situation when I was like 10 or 11, my mom went through a situation where she had an insurance claim denied and she was seeking treatment for cancer. And so again, my dad had to hire a lawyer to go fight with the insurance company to get the coverage overturned.
Wow.
And again, I remember thinking as a 10 or 11-year-old kid, holy smokes, there's so much power with these insurance companies. So it's a really valuable thing to make sure that, number one, you have a good agent that understands the nuances and how that stuff works. But then make sure that you have somebody in your corner that if things go wrong, they can go to bat for you.
Right.
I mean, so that's why we built the shop that we have, is we can both protect on the front end, and if things don't go right, then we go litigate.
Absolutely.
We hold the carrier's feet to the fire to make sure that they're responsible not only for the contract, but also to treat you fairly. And if they don't treat you fairly, we're gonna go to bat for you.
Yeah.
We're gonna make sure that they pay bad faith damages as well. So that just goes to my last point about, again, the 2 steps before: understanding your risk, making sure you have enough coverage, and then it really is making sure that you have the right people on your team. There are a lot of people that sell insurance. Probably everybody has a nephew or cousin or somebody that sells insurance.
Yeah.
And no offense to those guys, but when they're selling discount rate policies, you're going to get discount coverage. And if you don't want to deal with situations where you say, I thought I was covered for that, hire somebody that understands the nuances of insurance law, who's dealt with the intricacies of how these policies play out, because we can build protections on the front end that will help avoid a lot of stress on the back end. It's not even that much more expensive, let's be honest.
Right.
It just takes a little bit of effort on the front end to make sure you're protected for the long term.
Makes sense. And it's important to note in all of this, we never once talked about, oh, you got to find a policy that saves you $10 a month or $50 a month. None of that matters. In your situation, when you're a 16-year-old kid and that adjuster comes to your house, like, your dad's not thinking, oh, I'm glad I saved $25 a month.
For real.
You know what I'm talking about? So that's why in all these educational videos, it's all about putting things into perspective and what insurance is really about.
Yeah.
It's not about all the commercials and saving 15%, or it's about protecting yourself. Our whole mission with Heritage is building better futures.
I love that.
And so you do it right on the front end, you're protecting your future. And then there's people like you, where if the insurance carrier doesn't do what they should, you help them.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's really, really important, because everything you see on TV is how do you save money on insurance.
Yep.
I love the idea of teaching people how do you protect yourself better because of insurance. And it's not going to be a huge difference in cost. I mean, it might be a little bit different, but the peace of mind that you gain from making sure that you have coverage in place far outweighs $10, $20 a month.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so again, our firm here, Copper Canyon Law, we can help with all that kind of stuff. And my brokerage is called Diamond Financial Group, and we work a lot with agents too, and we do a lot of this education type stuff to make sure that everybody understands, the intricacies and nuances. And I don't like to step on other agents' toes. They're all good people. So in the event that somebody's looking at a unique coverage issue or wants to understand how it works, they get us involved. We don't charge anything for it. We just co-write the policy. So we really help out. We really try to make this a better situation and take away the power that those insurance companies have. I was on the phone with insurance companies just this morning, and you realize how much clout they have.
Yeah.
So it's nice to kind of take some of that back and say, no, we understand this from a very, very intricate and detailed level, and we can protect our clients for it.
Perfect. And I'll put all his information down below. So if you have any concerns or you just want that peace of mind, feel free to reach out to him. He's a great guy. He'll take care of you. Thanks for being with us, friend.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.